In the Blood 3, War, by Lucian Meyer. Chapter 1, Splitting Headache.
To say Taylor's head was pounding would be an understatement. He was tied down to a large wooden chair. His eyes blinked open, and thankfully there was no harsh light. The room was dimly lit. He immediately spotted 2 guards, obviously watching over him. "What the—" he croaked out. "No talking," one of the guards snapped. Taylor rolled his eyes, but it did not serve him well. It made his head throb even more. He looked around. He had a pretty good idea of who had brought him here. The last year popped into place. He felt it flood over him like a wave. It was not a new sensation. He had it almost every time he woke up. The last year was eventful, to say the least. It had so much to digest for him. His mind flashing through, meeting Theraint the vampire, being converted to a vampire, spending months wondering why he was so powerful, not wanting to be something special. But the fact remained, Taylor was special. Because, as it turned out, Taylor was actually the son of the second oldest vampire. All of this was revealed when he met up with his parents, who had died when he was a boy. His life was thrown into turmoil, and she was still at his side. Taylor felt like he was torn at the seams. Then it got worse. Scott, his best friend, his brother, had become engrossly addicted to the blood, and in the hardest moment of his life, Taylor was forced to end his best friend. Taylor's already fragile seams cracked, and he imploded into himself. He tried to return to his new life, but it felt so wrong, so foreign. Even she could not keep him in. Taylor had gotten on his motorcycle with one intent and one intent only: to run. As he rode, he realized that he needed to return. But it was too late. He had been hunted and captured. His uncle had been behind the hunting. Renard was the oldest of all vampires, and by all accounts, he led the bloodlust vampires. It had not been till recently that Taylor and his friends had discovered that all the Nightshade, or bloodlust vampires, were linked together. And in one fell swoop, Taylor had given him every advantage he could. Taylor struggled against his restraints, but they had done their job well. He wasn't going anywhere. Anger rose in Taylor, but, as it never is, it was not his first emotion. The anger was only a reaction to the guilt of leaving the rest behind. What would Tricia think of me now? He wanted to rip free and run to her, but reality had slapped Taylor hard over the last few hours. He had just bailed on them, and now he would have to live with the repercussions. His head dropped as despair set in. All he could hear was his own labored breathing and the guard shuffling a bit. He thought about everything else but Tricia. He could not bear her image. It burned in his mind. He was able to keep his composure, but when he thought of Tricia, tears began to well. But she did come anyway, on her own. The flashes were like pictures and moments in his memory. The moment she had told him she'd rather ride her own bike. The moment she had seen him at Darius's home. The great protective look she had shot at the girl vampires in Las Vegas. To the comfortable arms she had offered during their time in Amsterdam. She had done everything for him. She had stood with him, and he had left. He had run away. He loved her because she was strong, and what he had done was weak. How could she ever even look him in the eyes? Think about anything but her, he screamed in his mind. And so it went for hours. He worked through his anger, knowing in the end it would not serve him. If the opportunity came, he would be ready for it. He would not buckle again. He wished for only one thing: to return to the battle with his friends and his family. However skewed or different they were the only thing that mattered to him. He began to understand why his mother and father had faked their death to him. He did not agree with their decision to do so. However, in the end, he knew that his parents had done it to give him a proper chance at life. Taylor began to see into himself a bit more. He knew no one would argue that mistakes were made in his upbringing. But does any parent not make mistakes? "You had it all," he screamed in his head. His head dipped as it had done so many times before. "And you ran," Taylor whispered. Taylor studied the situation for hours as well, trying to find a loophole or some way to start a run, but there was no option. Taylor didn't like it one little bit, but for the time being, there was nothing to do but wait. "And you ran," he said. The guard came over and quickly injected him with something.